Hey, this is the last in our Thanksgiving I Am Thankful series. Have you guys enjoyed this series so far? Yeah? I have absolutely loved connecting with people in our community as we've thought about being thankful through change and through worry and all of those different areas and things of life that we find ourselves having to navigate on a weekly, daily, can I get an amen? Sometimes hourly basis, right? Man, I just tell you what, like it just feels like sometimes from moment to moment, it's difficult to get by, and we get scattered and we miss things like I forgot to dismiss kids, right? So third, fourth, fifth grade, junior high, you guys are dismissed. Head back to your classrooms. We're grateful that you're here with us today and you got to worship. This is your first Sunday. We do a staged exit of our kids throughout the service. We feel like it's really important and valuable for them to worship with their parents and watch you get to worship with other adults. It's just a powerful, intuitive thing. You don't teach worship. Worship is caught as they watch you, and so we value that highly. But today might be, I think, the one, if I'm going to be honest, I've enjoyed all of them, but I've been looking forward to this day the most, not because of who, but because of what we're going to be talking about. And today we're going to be talking about gratitude or thanksgiving in the midst of pain. And what does that look like? And how do we deal with life's difficult circumstances that seemingly come out of nowhere? And so I want to invite my friends John and Kristen to come up. They're going to share their story today. Let's say hi. Let's welcome them. It's a nerve-wracking thing to stand up here. I'm going to fix that or I'm going to trip on that later. That would be bad. Hey, welcome, guys. Under the bright lights, right? Okay. Deep breath. You guys ready to dive in? Okay. John, I want you to take a minute, introduce yourselves, where you guys are from, kind of life, what you do, and just get, because I don't know that everybody even knows who you are. I mean, we've got so many new people coming in every week. It's difficult to know everybody that's coming through the doors, and I think that it's super valuable, right? Like if we're going to feel small in that community in the midst of the growth that we're experiencing, it's going to take some intentionality to meet new people. And so I'm just doing it on a Sunday morning on the stage with everybody. So ready, go. Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Vargas. This is my wife, Kristen, and we moved to Middleton. We're from Modesto, California, the Central Valley, and as many are. But yeah, we moved out here to Idaho right a year ago, and we had found Middleton Grace, and we're happy to be here.
I love it. How did you connect with Middleton Grace? Were you just driving by and
we had a church back home that we really enjoyed. So when we got out here, that was definitely something important to us to find a church. So we had had a few friends that had already been in the area and recommended some churches. So we had gone to a couple big churches in like Meridian and out of town, and they were okay. And then we went to one here in Middleton, and we just didn't really feel the vibe. And then Kristen had actually done a Facebook post on like Middleton Matters, little Facebook page, and just kind of asking, hey, what's a good church? And she had gotten some responses. One was,
I don't know if Amy Potter's here, but she had responded to my post, and there she is. And she so graciously messaged me on Facebook and was just saying what a wonderful community it was. And she reached out and gave me her phone number, and we came that Sunday, and we just felt okay.
Immediately felt at home. The kids enjoyed the kids class, and it's definitely feels like home, and we're happy to be here.
Hey, social media for the win, yeah? Let's go. Too often, right? I mean, social media, and I beat up on it more than anybody, right? But it can be redeemed for good. So I know that your guys' journey from California to Idaho was what you thought or hoped in the moment when you first made the decision. You thought it was going to just be a straight line, but then it ended up being a series of left and right-hand turns, sometimes bottomless pits and backward. Just take a couple of minutes and just share a little bit about that journey, and you guys can work together to tell that story. And I may have follow-up questions as you guys
So-
share what's happening.
So yeah, we had Kristen and I had been married almost 10 years now, but we had once we had our kids, and we'd both grown up in the Central Valley, California, and it got to be, it just wasn't the place that we grew up in, and things had changed, and it just was it's getting a little crazy. So
Yeah.
we wanted to get in a late start with our family, young kids. We wanted a better place that would be safe, and we could be surrounded by like-minded people and good, safe communities. So we started looking at Idaho 5 years ago, and it took some time. I had a couple businesses that I was deeply involved with where I couldn't just pick up and go find a job and move. So it took some time, and so we had finally bought a property a few years ago, and then we built a home in 2023-ish and 22, 23. And we're getting ready to move in June of 23. We're getting ready to move out here. Our house was wrapping up, and that's when we got thrown for the biggest curveball of our lives. And May 5th, Kristen woke up not feeling well, and I'll just kind of let her share her story from there.
May 4th, we were out to dinner with the family downtown, enjoying life, pictures. May 5th, I woke up to take the kids to school as I normally would. There we go. Is that working?
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
So I'll back up a little bit. So May 4th, we were out. Life was going well. We thought we were going to move in about a month or so. May 5th, I woke up to take the kids to school as my normal weekly day routine. And I just wasn't feeling well. Like I felt like I was coming down with something. I had lunch plans with friends that day, and I was so excited because I'm, stay-at-home mom, and I was like, oh, I get a day out. Everything was planned, and I remember looking to John, being like, oh, I don't really feel well. And I said, I'm going to be so mad if I miss my lunch. And he goes, go back to sleep. You'll probably feel better. So he went to work. He took the kids to school, went to work. A couple hours later, I woke up with a pain in my right side. And I was like, gosh, I don't know what this is. It was a pain I didn't have. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take a bath. Didn't go away. And then it just progressively got worse. I was like, okay, something's not right. I instantly called or text John or called him and said, something's not right. I need to go to urgent care. He rushed home, was home within in minutes. He could tell apparently that the pain was really bad. He said, we're not going to urgent care. We're going to the emergency room. So he rushed me to the emergency room. They took my vitals. That day was a little, I don't remember too much, but I do remember my vitals getting taken and them saying when the pain got managed, they did a scan. I had multiple kidney stones, one being very large. They kept me at the emergency room to manage the pain and see what was going to be done. That was on a Friday, but by the time Saturday morning came around, um, and I vaguely remember anything from Friday to Saturday, but do remember being told I was really sick and I was going to be taken to the ICU and put on a vent.
So yeah, it was quite a wild ride. So drop her off at the hospital, waiting. They get some results back, and all I know is she has multiple large kidney stones, and they're waiting on a urologist. So I go get the kids. I leave. I get the kids. We come back and visit Kristen that night, and they have her, admit her in a room. Pain's under control. So we leave. The next morning, I get a call, and they're like, "You need to get down here. One of the kidney stones has ruptured, and she's in septic shock."
So this is 24 hours.
Within
Yeah.
24 hours.
So
So
it happened so fast. Yeah.
they I do, like, when the nurse had told me, I remember telling her I was scared, and it's just very odd how I only remember certain parts of the 24 hours, but I vividly remember telling her I was scared and that I wanted to talk to my kids. Um, that was the last thing I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I get the kids situated. I go down there. They can't be in the ICU, obviously. So
Yeah.
I get down there, and the doctors are pulling me out in the hallway, and they're like, "Hey, you might want to start making arrangements. We don't think she's going to make it." I'm sitting there going, God, I can't even believe this. We were out to dinner last night, not a worry in the world. And they're like, yeah, the stone's ruptured. She's in septic shock. Her blood pressure dropped so low. So they literally have, I don't even know what sepsis is at this point. I'm very uninformed. and it's just crazy. So basically, one of the stones had ruptured her ureter. It's a tube between your kidneys and bladder, and then basically your blood flow, your urine and stuff goes through your body and just kind of poisons your blood, and
Yeah.
that's sepsis, and your blood pressure drops, and then she goes into septic shock, which is a whole nother level of bad. Like only about 30% of people survive it. So they've got her. I just see her in there. She's hooked up to every tube and wire, and they have her on, so
Well,
at this
I
point,
ended
I'm
up
just praying. I'm praying, and they're like, "You just need to pray. There's nothing we can do." I'm calling a couple of buddies that are doctors, and they're like, "Oh man," they're like, "Seek a higher level of care." So I'm in there trying to use certain terminology to advocate for her because I feel so helpless.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey, what can we go to Stanford, UCSF?" They're like, "There's nothing we can do. She's not stable enough to transfer. We're just trying to get her blood pressure, keep it up so that she survives." And yeah, at that point, really, all we could do is pray.
So that's Saturday night into Sunday morning.
Saturday
so I
morning,
was taken
Saturday
Saturday
morning.
Saturday I was taken into ICU. Then I was overall I was medically sedated. I was 11 days sedated. So during that time to pretty much keep me alive, they had to give, and just to explain further about my amputations, they had to give special medicine called vasopressors to send all the blood to my heart to keep me alive, which cuts off the oxygen and blood flow to your outer extremities.
small vessels and arteries to prioritize your primary organs, your brain, your heart, your kidneys to keep you alive. So
Yeah.
that's how, it's like how you go in the hospital with kidney stones, how do you end up losing limbs? So that's just a quick,
That's what the
rundown.
amputation.
It's wildest thing. I'd never heard of anything like it.
So after 11 days being sedated, and clearly I had no idea what was going on, I thankfully made it through, and I just the power of prayer.
We had, I mean, it just, we had so many good, friends. We had both grown up in the area our whole lives, and just so many friends and just people we didn't even know, and neighbors talk to other neighbors. I mean, friends set up a meal train. I'm just trying to juggle still my full time work and the kids while she's, in the ICU, and then my sister would get off work, come stay with the kids. I'd go spend, 5 to 9 at night till they kicked me out of the hospital with her, and just really not much I could do. Just this helpless feeling and just trying to keep everything going, and it's just the wildest thing. And I know we'll kind of get
Yeah.
into this, but like just the test of faith, and Jason asked us to what's a Bible verse that sticks with you that really kept your faith strong and through this. And I don't have a specific verse, but I just think about always like a faith that can't be te- um, tested, can't be trusted. And I'll tell you, it's been the ultimate test of my faith and our faith. And it's just crazy when they pulled me out in the hallway and they're telling me like, "Hey, we don't think she's gonna make it. You need to start making arrangements." And I'm just thinking like, "What?
Yeah.
What just happened?" And I just remember praying, and I just somehow I knew that the Lord wasn't gonna take her from me. But what I
Mm.
didn't know is how different life would be, and it's crazy.
And that's actually what I just one more question to just take us. And so, uh, right, you can only imagine what they're going through from, hey man, I don't feel well. I'm going to be mad if I miss lunch with my friends, to it was 11 days medically induced, but if you count Friday, you're talking 12, 13 days of your life just gone. And so then you wake up and the amputations and all of that. But how has life, trying to figure out how to ask this question, how have you dealt post all of this stuff? You guys moved to Idaho. You're going through. You're trying to figure out how to navigate life in this new normal, and things that used to be uh, you wouldn't even think twice about now is you. It's very difficult for you to do. And how have you processed that? What does that journey look like for you in the last couple of months,
Um, oh my goodness, last well, so
or however long?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
feel
spent
free.
overall 52 days in the hospital, between being in the hospital and rehab. Um, and when you asked about the verse,
Yeah,
so there's this one specific day I always share, and I was in the hospital, and I was already moved out of ICU. I was moved to a regular floor. However, my heart rate had spiked to 190 one night, and then they had to move me to the floor to monitor my heart 24/7. And I had one specific day I was just, and my parents were in there with me, and I just lost it. I was like, why me? If something bad happens to you, you question why me? Like, I feel like I've been such a great person. I've been that, person to feel like I do things right. So I just explained it that I really wrestled with God. And I remember telling my parents, why would God do this to me? I'm never going to, and I just previously, I was a teacher for a really long time, and I had just applied to go back to work the month before I got sick for up here in Idaho. I was so excited. And, you just think you have everything planned out. And it was just, I just was in bed and I was like crying. My mom's holding me. And I was like, I'm never gonna be able to teach. I'm never gonna be able to write, because at that point, I hadn't had the amputations. I just had the dry gangrene going on, and my hands were crippled over, and it was clear that I was not going to have my fingers. We didn't know how much of my hands, we didn't know how much of my feet I was going to lose, but it was just that I'm never going to be able to write. I'm never going to be able to teach. I'm never going to be able to do my daughter's hair. And I just was going to my mom, and she's holding me, and God has a plan. God has a plan. She's telling me, and I go back to that day because I feel like it was that day after I just let it out, because it was taking a long time for me to really comprehend what had happened to me and what was going to happen. And after that day, just a huge amount of contentment came over me.
Mm.
And I just can't explain the amount of, I just felt presence the whole time I was in the hospital. And nurses like telling me, like, how are you handling this so well? And I honestly don't know. I don't know how, except I felt presence.
Mm.
I knew. And so when I go into the verse, I just knew that, okay, the Lord is going to take me on this journey, but he is going to give me everything I need. Um, and that's where I got the strength. I really, really did. I don't know how I did. I still sometimes am like, how am I? I wake up like, how am I getting through the day? How am I doing this? And there's no explanation besides the Lord has put everything I've needed since leaving the hospital
Mm.
and then moving here. So we didn't move in June because I was home in a hospital bed and recovering, and still had nurses, coming in and
Yeah.
out. Um, Finally, I was able to be stable enough to come up here in October. John, we and the kids, and I finally saw our house for the first time. I hadn't even seen our house, beautiful house that was built. And it was that trip. I said, you know what? Well, actually, it was that trip that I walked for the first time when I wasn't expected to
Mm.
walk without any assistance. And I told John, like, let's just do it. Let's go. Let's move. And we did. November, Veterans Day weekend of 2023. And I just knew and I trusted that I would be given everything I needed um, for this journey. And since we moved here, I have. So many things that I just can't explain. Like the right prosthetis was given to me here in Meridian. My doctor, everything, everybody here in the community has been so gracious and helpful and genuinely wanting to help, which has been hard to accept help because I'm not one that likes to take help. But when you're desperate, you learn to do that. Um, and yeah, he's just taking us on this journey. It wasn't what we expected, but I think ultimately, God has a plan, and we're not in control. It was a hard way to learn that, but
We
uh,
thought we had it all figured
yeah.
out, and we were gonna move
Yeah.
and do this and that. And
And then
definitely on God's time.
for sure. Hey, can you guys give it up for John and Kristen? That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sean. Hey, note to the team: next year we need to do like walk-up music, and we should have played Mandisa's "Overcomer" when she was coming up here, right? Like, what a story! My goodness gracious alive! I'll tell you what, there was a part of me this week. I was on Wednesday. I finished this message, writing it out. I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday. It was late. No, it was after. It was after Wednesday, and I had been to the dentist. I've been on this year-long journey. If this is your first Sunday, maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't noticed, but I'm missing a prominent tooth in my mouth. I'm missing my front tooth. It's an injury, and I was supposed to get that implant on Wednesday, and and it didn't happen. I went to the dentist office, and it was the wrong color. And I was really bummed. I started crying. I came home kind of depressed, and then sat down to start writing this message. And the Holy Spirit checked my heart, and it's like, man, really have anything to complain about. Especially as I started writing it. And so the verse that Kristen shared with me that has connected her and walked her through this journey that we're just going to teach through today is found in Philippians chapter 4. If you have your Bible and you want to follow along, you can. If you didn't bring one, it'll be on the screen. And we're going to read through it. And then as we have this whole series, we're going to just break down the biblical truths that come out of these verses that have carried people through some of the darkest nights of their soul. And it says this in Philippians 4, starting in verse 10. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. He's just addressing the Philippians' desire to bless him. So let's just keep going. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Verse 12, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound in any and every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. Verse 13, we all have this on a coffee cup somewhere. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. We read that, and I think sometimes we read it, and it's this beautiful section of Scripture, but we miss what it's really saying. We miss how it's actually applied to life. I think, right, of the high school athlete who's getting up in the state playoffs of the championship baseball game, and the bases are loaded, 2 outs, a full count, and he needs a base hit to win the state championship for his high school baseball team. And he walks up, and in his mind, he's quoting Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's a beautiful thought, but I don't think that's how Paul meant to apply it to our lives. But what I want to just break down, and we're just going to start, we're going to look at a couple of verses. We got 3 things that we're going to talk about, how to have gratitude or thanksgiving in the midst of pain. I don't know if you caught that as they were telling the story. And you could see the smile on her face. Now, there's some painful moments where she was tearing up, but there's this, if you talk to them outside of, 30 seconds on a Sunday morning, there's just this gratitude it's deep in their soul. And I want that kind of gratitude. And so I think that Philippians 4 breaks down for us how to have that. And the first one is this idea, and it's the first point in your sermon guide, is that contentment is a byproduct of your choices. This idea of being content is a byproduct of your choice. Now, not that I'm speaking of being in need, comma, and then look what he says in the verse. For I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Not I can be content or I should be content, but I am to be content. It is a choice in any and every circumstance that you face to be content. It may be hard to hear, but Paul's instructions are very clear. No matter what the situation, you should be content. Paul breaks it down, right? Hungry, cold, like when life is hard, you should be content. When life is easy, you should be content. When it takes a sudden left-hand turn, you should be content. When it goes the way that you think it should go, you should be content. When it doesn't go the way that you think it should go, you should be content. It is a choice that you make. What's that old saying? I can't control what happens to me, but I can control my response. She can't control a kidney stone bursting in her body. Cooper can't control a wreck that takes his car away from him. I can't control that the implant for my tooth was the wrong color. All I can do is control the way that I think about it. Contentment is a byproduct of your choices. It's like planting a seed in a garden. If you plant the right seeds when life doesn't go the way that you want it to, contentment will be there for you to reap and harvest. It's not this elusive thing. It's just a choice, which might make it the hardest thing ever. It's just easier to choose to not be content, to be frustrated with the struggle or whatever it might be. But we have to understand that it's a byproduct of our choices. And from that, this idea, there's this that flows this natural conclusion. In verse 12, he says this, "For I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound in any and every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger and abundance and need. I can do all things through him who gives me strength." Now, this isn't in your sermon guide, but it might be worth writing it down. But it says, the things that we focus on will influence our contentment. The things that you focus on will influence whether you're a content person or a non-content person. If you focus on the wrong things, you will never find contentment. If you focus on the right things, you will. Anybody ever find yourself in this trap like I've got this, but man, they had that. If only I had that thing, my life would be better. Maybe you get caught in that comparison trap. And life is going pretty good for me, but man, I just wish it. Comparison is the thief of joy. Satisfied and content where you're at with life and what it looks like. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't strive for more or work hard or do any of those things, but to begin to compare what you have to what other people have and get caught in this trap. That's why I don't do certain social media apps. Because they produce in me a lack of contentment when I see people doing things that I'm not doing, and I get frustrated and I go, well, why can't I do that? Recent studies show that joyful people typically tend to focus on positive aspects of their life. They think about positive things. They prioritize strong relationships with family and friends. They cultivate gratitude, and they have a sense of purpose. And they are more likely to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than dwelling on negative thoughts or focusing on what they lack. They also tend to be optimistic, and they actively seek out positive experiences. They're like like the joyful people in your life, and then we all got somebody that's just like was a Debbie Downer. Apologies to anybody named Debbie. You know what I'm talking about? You're always around them, and you're like, golly, dude, I don't want to be around you. You're always morose and sad, and it's just never good enough. And it's just like, dude, come on. It's a choice. There's a positive focus. There's a strong social connection. It's a gratitude. Being grateful for what you have and not ungrateful for what you don't have. Focusing on what you possess and not what you lack. Finding a meaning and a purpose. Just being generally optimistic. Having resilience to bounce back when life doesn't go the way that you think that it should. We lack a lot of resilience in the world today. And it is a popular buzzword for raising kids 18 and under. But the reality is, I think 18 to 45, we lack some resilience too. Well, what is resilience? All resilience is choosing to not let negative destroy your life or derail where you're headed. That's all resilience is. It's the ability to bounce back when bad things happen to you. It's David in Psalms 40. I was in the miry pit, and I waited patiently before the Lord. He inclined and he heard my cry, and he lifted me up out of that pit, and he put my feet on a rock, and he put a new song in my mouth. It's not being dragged down and burdened by where we're at, but it's seeing beyond. It's understanding that life rarely goes the way that you think that it should. I thought that would have gotten an amen, but how many, we got like sales managers, business reps and stuff. When you're looking at your yearly quotas, when you're looking at a graph of how your year went, which way do you like to see those numbers go? Up and to the right, right? We love to see up and to the right, don't we? Up and to the right is fun. Up and to the right is good. Up and to the right is new shoes and a new car and fancy dinners and paying your bills on time. Whew. Here's the problem. God often doesn't work in up and to the right. He works down and to the left. When life is hard, that's when God works. He's working all the time. When you're up and to the right, he's working and he's moving, but he's shaping and molding when life is hard and it's down and to the left. It's in those moments that we get to choose. We've got to figure out what life is going to look like. And I want you to hear this. I want everybody to stop what you're writing and look at me. I want you to hear this because I think that there are people in the audience that think when life is down and to the left that God's doing it to punish you somehow. He's not doing it to punish you. You may be down and left because of the natural consequences of your choices. You may have made a poor choice, and that resulted in a difficult circumstance. That's called natural consequences. It's a result of the world that we live in. It's broken. It doesn't always go the way that we'd hoped it should. But God redeems everything in your life for your good and his glory. He doesn't waste a moment of down and to the left in your life. He redeems every one of those moments to produce in you something holy that you couldn't produce on your own. He uses each one of those moments to produce in you a fruit that other people get benefit from. That if you hadn't gone through that difficult circumstance, you would have never been able to speak to a situation in life. Think about Kristen and her story. She has a very unique perspective on life that she can speak to other moms of young kids when life gets hard and it's difficult. Does she wish that she would have never gone through it? Absolutely. I wish that she would never have gone through it. I don't understand exactly why. I look at it, and she didn't say this, but I look at it and go, God, it's not fair that she had to go through that. Why did you put her through that? Man, I've said it before, fair only makes sense when you know the whole story. Fair's going to make sense in heaven one day when somebody walks up and says, I'm here because of you. And Kristen will be like, I don't even know who you are. But it's the way that she holds and presents herself, and she points people to the Savior. John said it, he stole my last point, or actually I stole his. A faith that can't be tested, can't be trusted. If you find yourself in the middle of difficult circumstances and you're asking God, why, Lord, are you doing this to me? This doesn't make any sense. This is not fair. And it's you walk away from it. Man, the testing of your faith produces something in you. Do you guys get this? The Christian life isn't about to be a follower of Jesus means that you set aside your wants and desire to pursue and chase the one who knows you and created you. And in that pursuit of following him, it produces something in you. Do you get benefit from it? Yes, you get benefit from it. There's this justification, this righteousness, and this holiness that comes from pursuing God. But man, he's doing it to produce something in you. He often uses difficult, painful times. But you can have gratitude and thanksgiving in those painful moments of life when you understand that your contentment is a result of your choices and choosing to look at God and Jesus and not what you think should have happened.